It's
eggnog time.
I mean, technically for me, it's not. As you can tell, I have the fall time leaves up, and actually my fall time decorations all over the place because it is October 24th.
And
it's not really Christmas time, or really, you shouldn't be thinking about Christmas during Halloween. However, Alton Brown has a aged eggnog recipe that I have always been intrigued about trying. So this year I decided I'm gonna bite the bullet. I'm gonna make Alton Brown's aged eggnog recipe. Alton Brown says,
let it age for a good 2 weeks. A month is better, and 2 months even better still.
And he says, and I quote,
in fact, there is no reason you couldn't age it for a year or more.
I will be aging it for a month and a half to kind of hit that middle ground, and we'll come back to it at that point. I'll taste it today just so we can see what it tastes like, but I'm also going to age a liter of it for an entire year, and we will come back to it next year and see where it's at. Alton Brown says that he's
never had the patience to age it that long,
but that
it's technically possible.
So you know what, Alton Brown? I'm gonna do that. I'll do it. And we'll see how it is then. I have nothing but high hopes. But let's make some eggnog. Hi there. Jake from State Farm here. I feel like I need to explain myself a little bit more. I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, the holidays were a magical time of the year. I think a lot of that can be chalked up to corporate branding, taking advantage of our
dumb little pea brains.
But the holiday season still hits different. However, I also absolutely detested eggnog. Arguably one of, if not the most iconic holiday beverage. I couldn't tell you why, but I did. However, my taste buds eventually matured, and I came back to it in the holiday season of 2016 when I realized that eggnog is actually a pretty tasty bev. I was working as a shelf stocker at this local natural grocery store called Big Hollow Food Co-op in Laramie, Wyoming. Shout out, I always stop by when I'm in town. And they purchased their dairy from a farm out of Colorado called Morning Fresh Dairy. Year-round, they have a specialty drink called root beer milk that's actually
pretty fire.
But during the holiday season, the co-op swaps their root beer milk order for Morning Fresh's eggnog. Once I tried this eggnog, I couldn't get enough of this stuff. I probably bought like 10 bottles that year alone. Fast forward to last year when I no longer lived in Laramie but still craved a good eggnog. It was at this point that I discovered Alton Brown's recipes for boozy homemade versions, which is the traditional way to enjoy the beverage. I didn't have time to create the aged one, but he also has a non-aged recipe which I promptly whipped up for my Christmas guests. It was a hit, trust me. When fall rolled around this year though, I knew I had to make the aged eggnog just to see what it was like. Now that you're up to speed, here's the recipe. Separate the eggs and store the whites for another application, such as a delicious Apple Cider Bourbon Sour. Thank you, VinePair, for the recipe. Beat the yolks with the sugar and nutmeg in a large mixing bowl until the mixture lightens in color and falls off the whisk in a solid ribbon. Combine cream, half and half, milk, bourbon, rum, cognac, and salt in a second bowl or pitcher, and then slowly beat into the egg mixture. Move to a large glass jar, or a couple of smaller ones, and store in the fridge for a minimum of 2 weeks, although there's nothing wrong with drinking it right away. there we have it, our 3 liters of eggnog plus the 1 glass to sample today. These two I will be opening in a month and a half. I want to compare the clear glass versus the brown glass. I know it has a big difference in terms of flavor profiles in beer, so I'm interested to see how it affects this beverage as it ages. And then to err on the side of caution, I chose brown glass for the one that I'll be aging for a year because I figure the less light that gets into the drink, the better. Let's sample the little bit we have extra for today and see, where the eggnog is at on day 1. Completely unaged, just the ingredients together and then sipped. Nutmeg on the nose. I have extra nutmeg grated on top, so obviously that's going to be the case. It's pretty alcohol forward. My guess is that's going to kind of marry out as it ages, but it is a little bit
Aggressive with the rum flavors, but
it's really good. It is fantastic eggnog. If you wanted to make just some eggnog for a party, you can't go wrong with it this way. But Alton Brown has other traditional eggnog recipes that you might prefer to make rather than the aged variant if you're in a pinch. However, this is really good. It's all the traditional flavors, It's got that rich creaminess from the egg yolk and the whipping cream, and the thing I noticed the most is the alcohol bite. It is very sweet, lots of sugar in it, obviously. But yeah, let's come back to this in 2 months. And just like that, it is Christmas time. More specifically, it is December 5th. So it's been about 42 days. Which is around that month and a half point. And I am here looking like a glass of eggnog myself. I took the liberty of making Alton Brown's classic eggnog recipe, and I will quickly speed through that footage right now. In the bowl of a stand mixer, beat together the egg yolks and sugar until the yolks lighten in color and the sugar is completely dissolved. Add the milk, cream, bourbon, rum, and nutmeg, and stir to combine. Move the mixture to a medium mixing bowl and set aside. Place the egg whites in the bowl of the stand mixer and beat to soft peaks. With the mixer still running, gradually add the remaining 1 tablespoon of sugar and beat until stiff peaks form. Gently fold the egg whites into the mixture. Chill and serve. It's a pretty similar process to the aged recipe, but the key difference to me is the lower alcohol content and the inclusion of the egg whites for a little bit more frothiness. I don't think these ones are going to be as frothy, but yeah, I haven't opened them yet, so let's crack into them and see how they are. Smells good. Also smells good. And we'll add just a pinch of freshly grated nutmeg that I had left over from the classic recipe. You may notice I also have this one. This was the first eggnog that I actually liked. I hated eggnog as a child, but when I tasted this mid-college, I was very on board the eggnog train.
But
Today's focus is on these ones, and then we'll kind of use those as a baseline. So I'll start with the clear glass one. Still really rum forward on the nose. But wow, this has married very nicely. I'm gonna assume that this one is pretty similar, but there's almost like a honey sweetness that wasn't present before that I'm really digging. That's really awesome. Let's hop on over to this one just to see if we can notice any difference between the glass. Not really, and I'm not like that surprised. It's only been, what, a month and a half. And I mean, they sat in the same fridge, which remained closed the majority of the time. I'm glad that the eggnog that I'm aging for a whole year will be sitting in the brown glass, because I think over that amount of time that could have an impact, but because the fridge remains, relatively lightless, it's probably gonna be fine. It probably would have been fine either way. But let's compare it to the classic recipe from Alton Brown. So the classic one is a little less rich, a little lighter, maybe even a little sweeter. Definitely toned back on the alcohol, but the dark rum and the bourbon both lend a really nice, warm character to it, albeit not as strong as is present in these ones. But I would also say that this one's, it's safer and more boring almost. This one is complex and honey sweet and still really rich, but also has a lot of character from the different spirits in it. There's actually a nuanced dried fruit note coming from the Hennessy, which is super nice, and that's not present in this one. So I still think I like the classic more than this when it was fresh, but I like this aged more than I like the classic. Rolling over into just the plain old eggnog from Morning Fresh Farms. This is definitely
thicker
and
sweeter.
They add skim milk powder to this one, so I'm guessing that contributes to some of the thicker nature of the beverage. And they also definitely use a few more spices than these ones. I'm having a hard time pinpointing them. Maybe some allspice, maybe a dash of cinnamon. I'll look it up, and if I find more, I'll leave it up there or something. But yeah, it's very good. And if you wanted to make it boozy, you could add those same spirits to it, and that would totally be fine as well. But one of the reasons I really fell in love with this eggnog in particular is because they don't really add any carrageenan or xanthan gum or anything to thicken it that isn't already present in the beverage. They add skim milk powder, but it's a pretty natural eggnog, which I don't think is super common. If you're getting Southern Comfort or just one of the Dairy Gold or the carton ones from any grocery chain, they generally tend to have a lot of weird goop added to it. So that's kind of why I liked this one so much, and I think it stands up pretty well for something off the shelf. But if you can, I cannot recommend enough making your own eggnog. It is fun, and it is also leagues tastier than anything you're gonna buy off the shelf. I have one more thing for us to try today. In the spirit of unnecessarily adding Bud Light Seltzer to a video, I tricked my wife into trying the pumpkin spice seltzer in my pumpkin beer video, and then I also had her try the entire fall flannel pack the week before Thanksgiving, which was funny, but I don't know, their seltzers have gotten weirder as time has progressed. And so in keeping with that, this year's Ugly Sweater release ditched the peppermint patty flavor and the ginger snap flavor and apple crisp, since apple crisp was in their fall flannel pack, and instead opted to include seltzer nog. So I will try this next to these really delicious eggnogs and see how it stacks up. So on the nose, it's got that same sickly sweetness that was present in the pumpkin spice flavor. So I'm guessing that's going to be the case here too. I mean, yeah, it's like, weirdly, it has that pie crusty flavor, like kind of bready. Maybe the seasonings and everything in the real eggnogs are drowning it out, but I mean, I can pick up on like maybe the babyest hint of nutmeg if I talk myself into it, but it mostly just tastes like off creamy and sickly sweet. So I mean, it is what it is, but I think I'm gonna stick to my real eggnogs. Coming back, definitely on the mouthfeel, the aged one is definitely thicker, which makes sense. There's a lot more egg yolks involved, whereas egg whites were incorporated in that one. It's got like not a gooey characteristic like is present in this one, but it's definitely thicker. But yeah, I am absolutely looking forward to having this around. And I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little freaked out and a little worried that this was gonna not go well and that these were gonna, like, you know, end up being atrocious or something like that. But they surprised me. They turned out really well. So I'm not even gonna say cautiously optimistic. I am very optimistic about how the year-aged one is gonna taste in a year. I think it's gonna be all right, actually. And I'm very excited to come back and try it at that point, or see if we can pick up on, you know, any more complex flavors unfolding at that point. That's dangerous. That's good stuff. So to recap, next October, I'm gonna recommend that you definitely make this recipe. Leave it in the back of your fridge, come back to it, and see how it has unfolded, because this was really tasty. However, if you need to make some eggnog on the fly, the classic recipe is a good go-to. And if you're located in northern Colorado or, you know, southeastern Wyoming, look for some Morning Fresh during the holiday season, and you will not be disappointed if you like eggnog. And lastly, if you want to intimidate your enemies, show up to one of their parties with some Bud Light Eggnog Seltzer. I am pleasantly surprised at how the aged eggnog turned out a month and a half in. The phrase aged like milk does not apply here. The high alcohol content apparently has a sterilizing quality that prevents the milk and eggs from going bad. I am not a food scientist, so don't ask me why that is the case, and don't take my word as gospel. That being said, I mentioned in the tasting that you should definitely try to make this next October sometime. If you really want to, you can go ahead and make it now and taste it along with me next year, but I make no promises of food safety here. With that, have a happy holiday season, and cheers. Whoops, not that one. Cheers, my friends. I'm also currently doing a 12 Drinks of Christmas series on my Instagram story leading up to Christmas Day, where I'll cover a drink a day including holiday coffee blends, beers, traditional mixed drinks, and even a mead. Follow me at Nick_Tracy if you want some good reviews and recommendations or just want to sip along. Oh, that seltzer.